This is the iPhone 14 Pro, and you've probably already seen dozens of reviews on it, but this one is going to be a bit different since this is my first iPhone ever. So let's start right off with the design. The first thing that's different about the 14 Pro compared to previous phones that I had are the flat sides and the flat screen. When I first saw the phone in some videos, I loved the design of it, but when I first held it in my actual hands, it was a bit weird and I wasn't sure if Apple made the right call. Then things suddenly changed. After just a few weeks of using the phone myself, I actually fell in love with the flat sides. I have to give it to Apple. The flat sides give the phone a nice rigid feel as well as having a way better grip than previous curved models that I used. The overall build quality of the 14 Pro was a nice reassurance that my $1,000 that I paid for the phone was well spent, because when you hold the phone in your hand, you actually feel the premium materials that it's built out of. Like that gorgeous matte black glass on the back, that ceramic shielded screen in the front, and let's not forget about the stainless steel sides, which like magnets attract those fingerprints. And don't even get me started how often I had to clean them, even compared to cleaning the screen. But looking away from this disadvantage of the stainless steel sides, I do really think that it gives the Pro phones a nice, really like premium look. As it goes for colors, as I was watching the presentation, I instantly knew that I was going to go for space black. I know deep purple is the start of the show this year, but it didn't really hit me as much as I would have liked. Going with the space black, I have way more case options that will actually look good. For example, look at this combo with the matte black icon skin and the D-brand grip. Let's now move to the front, where we have that flat 6.1-inch display. I'm really pleased with the overall build quality and size. I was actually thinking about getting the 14 Pro Max mainly for the extra few hours of battery life, but then again, I don't really want to carry a brick around with me. And the battery situation on the smaller phone is still great, so I think this was the right choice for me to go for the smaller size. The colors on the screen are great to look at, and the brightness is on another level. Apple has upgraded the screen to be capable of going all the way up to 2000 nits in bright sunlight. And after a month of usage, I haven't had a situation where I couldn't see anything perfectly on my screen when I'm outside or pretty much anywhere. The only problem I encountered was when running power-intensive tasks. The phone heats up and dims down the screen a bit. This goes away after a few minutes when it's cool again, but it sucks when editing photos in Lightroom when I'm not going to be able to see the exposure of the image correctly. The crown for the best feature of the Pro phones has to go to the silky smooth Pro Motion animations in iOS. Ever since I got infected with the high refresh bug, the thought of seeing a 60Hz screen every day keeps me up at night. Jokes aside, I really love how everything on the iPhone is just optimized to run on the high refresh rate. Let's now talk about the elephant in the room, the dynamic island. They have basically managed to convert a technological deficit into a feature that people will want. But with that said, I really think that the dynamic island isn't a feature worth upgrading for. I find all the new interactions it has super cool and fancy with those extra smooth animations thanks to the new dedicated display engine, but I found myself mostly using it because it's the new feature and not really out of necessity. Don't get me wrong, I really appreciate the little extras of some of the effects. When playing music, for example, the waveform matches perfectly with the color of the album cover. Or when having a call, you can see two different colors of the waveform represent each member of the call. And I have to say, the photos and videos you get from that new front-facing camera are truly outstanding. So here we have some sample footage of the front-facing camera with its new autofocus feature that allows you to get really close and really far away, and it will still keep you in focus. Also, I forgot to mention about the speakers of this phone in the actual video while I was filming it, and they are absolutely amazing. Like my previous phone, I had to probably listen at 100 to 90% all of the time, but with this one, I kind of catch myself going from 30 to 50%, and that's well enough. If you bump it all the way up to 100, it's gonna fill the room totally. So hope you enjoyed this little test with all of the background noise going on. I won't really edit this video so you can see how it sounds like, and I think this is one of the best front-facing cameras on the market right now. But before I get to all of the great features that the new cameras have, let's get to something that Android has had for years now, which is the always-on display. And to Apple's credit, I love how they again found a way to make something completely different from the industry standard. They dim down the entire lock screen, keeping your wallpaper intact. I totally get why they did this, since it looks absolutely gorgeous. And this is exactly the reason why I turned it off. I was looking so much at that great design that it became way too distracting. I couldn't concentrate on a task at hand. And with turning the always on display off, I actually managed to gain an extra few percent. Battery life has been great overall. I had to charge it pretty regularly the first few days when I was testing all the new features and my eyes were just glued on the screen. But after getting back to my usual usage, I had to charge it about every second day, since I mostly use my phone for about 2 to 4 hours a day. If you have the new iPhone 14 Pro, please tell me if you have the always on display turned off or turned on. I would be really interested how many other people have the always on display off. iOS has been amazing so far, and I truly love how everything just feels like it has a purpose. Everything just is nicely polished, no animation skips, just everything is nicely smooth. I love how you close the apps. I love all of the new gestures that I can do, and just the small things that really just shine. And with all that stuff said, let's get to the main point why I got this phone: the cameras. Apple has finally made the jump from 12 megapixels to 48 megapixels on its main camera sensor. This might sound like a huge upgrade, but it probably won't look like it when comparing it to previous year's phones. Don't get me wrong though, I love these cameras. They take amazing pictures in 99% of situations. The only time they lack is complete darkness, or if you're using some kind of mode in not the right situation. The bigger sensor also adds a 2x button in the camera app that lets you crop into the images without losing any quality. I find this very useful when you just want the subject of your photo in frame without having to move closer. There are also big upgrades to all of the f-stops on all the lenses. This upgrade lets the sensor gather more light, thus making a higher shutter speed possible in the daytime, which will freeze all the action and make your photos less of a blurry mess. This also helps a ton with shooting in dark environments, especially at night. You can see how everything in these pictures is clearly recognizable. Not really sharp, but then again, these are just tiny smartphone optics. Just a couple of years ago, you really didn't even think about taking a night photo with your phone, since you knew that back in the day it was just going to be a plain black image. At the moment, I'm still enjoying the ultra-wide camera with its capability to capture entire rooms as well as getting those otherworldly perspectives in the macro mode. But the lens I keep on the most has to be the telephoto lens. I really like the 77mm focal length it gives you to play with. The perspective truly centers your attention on the subject in the photo. We now have the option to shoot in Pro RAW on all the cameras. This enables you to edit your photos more precisely afterward. But be careful with these Pro RAW images, since they take up a lot more space than the regular JPEGs. I had one photo that I took that was over 100 megabytes, which is quite large, especially when you're rocking that 128 gigabyte model. The video on the iPhone has been and still is the best in the game. No one can argue with that statement. With Apple upgrading cinematic modes to be able to be shot in 4K now, that just takes it to another level. I definitely thought that last year's cinematic mode in 1080p was just a gimmick, because you can clearly see when somebody was using it in YouTube videos or on other social media. But this year is a lot different, since 4K makes a huge quality increase, as well as Apple developing new algorithms to process the edges of the frame way better. But this still isn't perfect, so I wouldn't ever shoot in the predetermined 2 or 2.8 f-stops, but I would move it all the way up to f8 to f10 when it actually looks good. And I will definitely be using this feature in some future videos. So be sure to watch out if you can spot some of those iPhone shots in my videos. They also added the new action mode feature, which takes a crop of your video going from 4K to 2.8K and it tries to stabilize the footage. To be honest, I wouldn't bother turning action mode on for most purposes, like walking, running, or even biking, since the regular stabilization in normal mode is already so good. Okay, that's it. See you in the next one.